I want to also, first of all, acknowledge Made in Africa and the team for just presenting this opportunity for this very important discussion. It's a discussion that's critical. And I think in this post-COVID environment, it's all the more critical. I want to start off also just by presenting the theme first and foremost. The theme that is before us today has to do with the challenges and opportunities to foster women's entrepreneurship. So we are here today with speakers from various countries and nations to talk about challenges and opportunities to foster women's entrepreneurship. The program that we're going to be following today is in 6 parts. In the first instance, we will be introducing, or the speakers will introduce themselves each very briefly in 1 minute. And in the second part, we will have a little discussion from each of the panelists and speakers talking about policies and regulations. In the third instance, part 3 will deal with a portrait of women entrepreneurship. And then we'll go to talking about fostering. How do we foster women entrepreneurship? The 5th part of the program will be focusing on an open discussion with a Q&A session. So if you have any questions, please do send your questions and put them up in the chat. We will gather your questions and pose them to some of the speakers and panelists. And the 6th part of the program will be dealing with just a conclusion, wrapping up and concluding our discussion. The objectives, in terms of the objectives here, we are looking at the 3 following issues. We know that women entrepreneurship is a unique opportunity for African economic development, which directly impacts employment, social justice issues, equality issues, and education. And in terms of our discussions with the leaders and the speakers today, we're going to be looking at the women entrepreneurship and how it has built its legitimacy and leadership in Africa by overcoming certain challenges. We're going to be looking at the main achievements. We're going to be looking at what are the difficulties in terms of inequality and disadvantage that women entrepreneurs have faced and are still facing in Africa today. We also are going to be looking at identifying women entrepreneurs in Africa. Who are those women entrepreneurs? And we're going to be looking at introducing a new generation. That's why I'm hopeful that we've got some young ladies and young people out there introducing a new generation of women entrepreneurs who will have been inspired by previous women entrepreneurs. What is their vision? What is their motivation, objectives, and what are the opportunities and how do we address them? The last objective we're going to be looking at is the aspect of women entrepreneurship being a priority for African development programs. And we have speakers like Madame MARIEME, who will probably be talking more to that aspect around African development programs and addressing challenges for the economy and public policies. How can we empower women through these programs to fully play their entrepreneurial role within the African society? How can we attract new leaders and innovation? And what is the role of international organizations? And I know that my brother JONI MUSABAYANA is going to talk to that with respect to his role in the ILO. What is the role of these organizations, institutions, governments, banks, and development funds, and how to increase the framework of an inclusive mobilization in the African continent. So with those opening remarks, I would like to ask the speakers, each of them, to introduce themselves briefly in 1 minute, and then we will go to the second part of the program. And I'm going to start, first of all, with my brother, who I used to work with the ILO. That's why I'm calling him my brother. I used to be part of the International Labor Organization office in South Africa. So my dear brother, Dr. JONI MUSABAYANA, who's the Deputy Director, please give us a brief introduction.
Thank you, Pearl. You can always come back home. The ILO. The space is still there for you.
Thank you.
Yeah. On behalf of my regional director, Cynthia Samuel Olanjuan, who could not be here with you, I'm thrilled to be part of this discussion. I'm the director of the ILO office for Eastern and Southern Africa, based here in Pretoria. And I have worked with women entrepreneurship issues for the greater part of my working life, but also on social justice and issues of equality in general in the labor market. And I look forward to sharing some of those experiences with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, my brother. And for our next introduction, our brief 1-minute introduction, may I call on, please, Miss Marianne Esther DASSANOU. I hope I haven't butchered your name.
So good morning, good evening, or good afternoon to everyone. I'm very pleased to be here. So my name is Esther DASSANOU, and I manage the Affirmative Finance Action for Women in Africa, which is an initiative of the African Development Bank to reduce the financial gap that exists for women entrepreneurs, to, of course, be able to access loans, grow their businesses, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I'll be very glad to discuss that and all the challenges that women face. I've been in this field for a little bit over 14, 15 years now.
Wow, that is amazing. Thank you so much. We appreciate that. And our next introduction, if we could please have our next introduction from Mrs. KHADIJA IDRISSI JANATI from Morocco. I told you we have different nations here. So Madame KHADIJA, can you please introduce yourself briefly in the next minute?
Of course, thank you very much, Pearl. Hello, everyone. It's my pleasure to be with you today. So my name is KHADIJA IDRISSI JANATI. I'm from Morocco. I've been entrepreneur for the last 11 years of my life in the communication, media, public relations field. I am also the co-founder of IFRAN Forum. That's an annual event that is meant for the African private sector to foster commercial and investment, commercial exchanges and investments between Africans. I am also the president and founder of iAfrica Women. This is a network of women leaders around the African continent. Our objective is to promote women to key decision-making positions, be it within the political sphere or public and private sector businesses. And of course, very excited to be here and to discuss such a very important subject for all of us and for the whole continent.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Madame KHADIJA. And our next is CHIOMA Ugo, and I believe you're representing Nigeria. So please go ahead and introduce yourself. There she is.
Perfect. Here I am. Hello, good morning, everybody. My name is CHIOMA Ugo. I'm a co-founder and head of growth at Prosper. So Prosper is an app that allows entrepreneurs to manage their banking and their business all in one place. I'm also a trustee of Women's Leadership Initiative. It's an organization that prepares women for leadership positions, both in the private and the public sector. I'm glad to be here this morning and also to be discussing women's entrepreneurship issues across the African continent. I've been involved in women empowerment for, I guess, a long time now, for over 10 years. I've been working on women's rights and women's entrepreneurship issues.
Thank you so much, and a very warm welcome to you again, all of our speakers. We want to thank you for taking time out to have this conversation with us. As all of you have rightly said, it's a very important conversation. Our part two, we're going to be addressing the next few questions to two of our speakers in particular, and we're dealing with policies and regulation. And to open up this discussion, I'm going to be posing a couple of 2 or 3 questions to my brother from the International Labor Organization, JONI. And first of all, I'm going to ask you the question to ask and say, how has the situation of women in the labor environment, we know that your organization, ILO, deals with the International Labor Organization, and how is the situation of women in the labor environment, how has it been enhanced in the last 15 years?
Thank you for this question. The situation of women in the labor market over the past 15 years. Generally, it's a good story of progress, but it's progress starting from a very low base. And one has to say, where we are today is not where we should be. We should be much better than this. Allow me to substantiate. In the first place, we have to talk about the changing nature of work, the impact of what we call the future of work, the impact of artificial intelligence, the so-called fourth industrial revolution, automation, digitalization, mechanization, and the impact that it has on the labor market, and the disproportionate impact that this has on women in the labor market. What I have to say, generally, the labor market, you have a triangular structure where the majority of the women are at the base. The majority of the women, in whichever value chain you look at, are in the areas that are most closest to the base of the value chain, whether you talk about cocoa, you talk about textile, you talk about floriculture, you talk about tobacco or agricultural production. In all cases, the majority of the women are at the bottom, where work is precarious, where incomes are very low, and therefore, decent work deficits are very high. And in this regard, we have to ask ourselves, how are we going to ensure equal opportunity and treatment of women in the labor market? And how much progress have we made in this regard? And how do we ensure the promotion of women's rights? And these questions are critical, not just for Africa, but for the whole global community. And in the process of us being the ILO, we have to talk about international labor standards that speak to this. And we have a number of conventions on equality. We're currently, this is the period of the 16 days of activism against violence against women and children. So we have to talk about violence and harassment of women in the world of work. We now have a new convention, Convention 190, particularly to face some of, to ameliorate some of the challenges that women face in the labor market. But in specific terms, allow me to just share with you a few key figures. The ILO Africa Report on Employment, which is a flagship publication of the ILO Regional Office, shows that by 2020, the gender gap in labor participation will reach 20 percentage points. This is mainly driven, if you look at North Africa, where the gender gap in labor participation is 47% by end of 2020. But nonetheless, women labor participation rates continue to trail men. And in 2020, women labor force participation rate will stand at 54% compared to 72% for men in Africa. The total participation rate, labor participation rate for Africa is at 63%. And this shows that there are still many more people in Africa who are willing and able to enter the labor market, but are currently not able to do so. And that speaks to the high rate of unemployment, underemployment on the African continent. And in this regard, it also shows the prevalence of poverty, lack of social protection, leaving both men and women with no choice but to do that type of work which they do out of necessity rather than choice. This reflects limited access to education, limited access to vocational opportunities, and is therefore responsible for the majority of women in the world of work becoming on-account workers or contributing family workers, and in the process facing huge decent work deficits. I could go on with more statistics, but I think this captures the picture. So progress, but starting off a low base, and as at where we are today, women still bear the brunt of non-equal treatment and discrimination in the world of work. Over to you, Pat.
Thank you so much, my brother, and some very important issues that you've raised. One of the statements that you made, which I like, is to say that where we are is not where we should be. So that's taken cognizance and recognition of the fact that there's still a lot of work to be done. I'm going to follow up with the next question to you. I think you may have actually addressed some of the issues already in your statements, but the next question to you would be, what are the main achievements in terms of policies and social situation? You've made mention of Convention 190, but we'd also just like you to address some of the main achievements in terms of, if it has to do with conventions, recommendations, maybe you can speak to that more, and policies and social situation. And how can we talk about impacting a new generation of pioneer entrepreneurs?
Sure. Let me say that the progress that has been made on the policy front, gender equality is now an accepted policy position. You will not read a national development plan by any country which does not speak to gender equality. Indeed, the SDGs, which are the platform for most countries, puts gender equality at the center of it. And I think it is now generally understood that without progress in terms of the situation of women, the progress on the African continent will be very limited overall. So on the policy front, I think a lot has been achieved and it's now agreed. And the conventions that have been put in place, I can speak about Convention 100 and Convention 111 on non-discrimination, equal pay for work of equal value, and really giving opportunities to women and also addressing discriminatory practices in relation to property, matrimonial and inheritance rights, addressing difficulties of accessing financial systems by women, improving mobility, reducing overwork, also tackling poor access to information and business networks. I think all of this, and at the center of it, we have to, when we discuss this situation, come back to the issue of discriminatory inheritance laws and customs, social customs that limit women's ownership of land and other assets, particularly in the rural areas, which are essential elements, assets for women to make progress. But we have to, and I think we've seen over the past 15 years, a disaggregation of, let us say, women who are in the middle income groups, in the higher income groups. So you see a disaggregation of micro entrepreneurs and SMEs in the informal economy on the one hand, with women with limited levels of education, limited access to specific skills required to start and run businesses. This given that entrepreneurship skills are largely absent in the school curricula, and that vocational and technical education systems largely do not allow curricular and pedagogical approaches that are responsive to the labor market. And all of this means that there is a large cohort of women in the majority who are at the lower end. But you do see women have access to educational opportunities, access to skills that are now in businesses, running businesses, high growth businesses. And I think some of my panelists speak to that. So when you talk about the challenges and the achievements that have been made, I think you do have to begin to disaggregate the women block into these two distinct categories, with the bulk of the burden still being with those that are at the bottom of the pyramid. Over to you, Pat.
Thank you so much, Johnny. You know, we had a third question, and I think you have been so comprehensive in your response. The third question was going to be around the ILO and what your focus has been of the ILO towards women's rights for entrepreneurship. I don't know if you want to go beyond what you've already said. You've mentioned some of the conventions, 100 and 111, that have been put in place to assist women in that arena. And what I've heard from you is to say that, you know, policies, conventions, recommendations have been addressed. What we need to focus on now going forward is implementation and making sure that there's alignment especially in the various nations, alignment with their own legislation. So making that happen. Is there anything else you would want to address, or are you happy with?
Indeed. Allow me to just emphasize, so the ILO is a comprehensive set of tools, advisory services, and capacity building to implement a women entrepreneurship development program, which is focusing on working conditions, occupational health and safety, social protection, the lack of organization and voice, the importance of representation and voice, access to appropriate financial services, and combating all forms of gender discrimination. And this has 5 steps, and allow me to just quickly outline them. First is a focus on sectors and looking at those sectors where women are establishing and growing their businesses, but also looking at how can we break into the sectors that were traditionally not accessible to women. Looking at, secondly, tailor-made business support, including entrepreneurship training programs, business continuity management, and soft skills training for women and men. Thirdly, we look at the issue of access to markets, particularly with the government, particularly with the private sector, and promoting hiring and purchasing policies that disproportionately benefit women-owned and women-led enterprises. The fourth is also connecting entrepreneurs to different financing options, including conventional financing institutions, but also looking at innovative financing such as impact investors. Finally, is this issue of strengthening women entrepreneurs' voice and representation by building peer-to-peer support networks, facilitating participation in associations, and strengthening networks. I think this 5-step approach by the ILO, which is being run in most of the countries throughout the continent, is also beginning to help not only those at the upper end, but those at the bottom of the pyramid. Let me end there. Thank you. Thank you, Pat.
That's awesome. Thank you. And I believe that this platform is helping the 5th point that you made around strengthening the voice and the voice of women entrepreneurs. This is definitely a platform that will do that. And we need to have many more of such kind of platforms and involvement of people. I want to continue this part dealing with policies and this part 2 with Madame Marianne Esther DASSANOU. And we want to talk about where your area specifically, the Africa Development Bank, through it's a unique initiative, AFAWA, shows the importance of African women entrepreneurs by supporting a global financial model which is dedicated to their sector. And we're talking about billions of dollars of investment. Can you please, Madame Marianne, just present to us how this financial mechanism is working and how it delivers a global model to address local opportunities? The floor is yours.
Great, thank you, Dr. KUPE. So let me first start by saying, and very much following on Mr. MUSABAYANA's contribution, that the challenges for women entrepreneurs are many. However, the ones that that keep resurfacing are the issues of access to finance, access to skills, and access to markets. And so through the Affirmative Finance Action for Women in Africa, AFAWA, these in a way are the issues that we're trying to address, however, honing in a lot more on the issue of access to finance, and within that, specifically addressing the other issues. So AFAWA basically falls back on 3 pillars. The first one is making the money available. So using financial mechanisms such as the one that you just referred to, which is a risk-sharing mechanism to de-risk the portfolio of women entrepreneurs, right? So women, the women's market is seen as being risky for financial institutions for all the different reasons that we know. They're very small, very often they're not registered. Even when they are registered, the financial information, the financial records are not available in a way in which they can be properly analyzed for the financial institutions to make a risk analysis, and then based on that decide on the worthiness of providing a loan or not. In terms of their skills, very often the businesses that they run are small, not just because of the access to finance, but because they do not have the knowledge or even the vision sometimes to, you know, really present a business that will be seen as being bankable by financial institutions. So the first pillar for us is to make the financing available and to accompany the financial institutions that we're working with in taking the risk. So we invest and we guarantee also the loans that these financial institutions would provide to women entrepreneurs. And the risk sharing mechanism that we're talking about right now, for example, can cover women entrepreneurs who are accessing loans anywhere from 50 to 75% of the amount of the loan. And the reason why we are actually able to do that is because data has shown us, and we also strongly believe in the fact that women actually repay their loans. The behavior of women when it comes to loan repayment being a lot higher gives us the confidence to accompany financial institutions to say, look, you can take the risk and we will cover you as you also are taking the risk. We are also looking at, you know, different types of financial areas also to invest in. So for example, trade finance. We know that in Africa, a lot of the women entrepreneurs are in the trading business. However, the way the trade finance mechanism is today, it doesn't particularly speak to the kind of trading that women do and to the size of trading that women do. So working along the lines, alongside the financial institutions, we're now looking at, if you will, refiguring out or readapting these types of financial tools in order to better address the needs and the reality of the women-owned businesses that we're trying to help. So that's one. The second pillar is the access to skills that we've already talked about. However, here the difference is we're not only upskilling women entrepreneurs, we're also upskilling financial institutions to better understand the world of women entrepreneurship, right? We might not say it outwardly, but the panelists that are here with me, those who are women entrepreneurs, I think will be in agreement that the way they run their businesses and the realities they face are very different than that of our fellow men businesses, right? Very often, for example, we'll say women will have a tendency to run their businesses close to the home. There is a reason for that. Men will run their businesses far away from the home. So the risks that these two entities face just because of that one difference are completely different. So for her, if she's running her business in her home, if something happens to the business, it's not just the business that tanks, it's the home that also tanks, right? So it's these nuances that have to be taken into account that financiers have to understand and to take into account as they're managing the different risks and coming up with the right types of products for the segments that they're trying to address. And it's the same with trade, right? The things that we trade are completely different. And so that also comes with different types of risk mitigants that we need to put in place. So we're through our upskilling or our provision of technical assistance and capacity building, we try to ensure that the two parties really understand each other so that the solutions that are being put on the table are win-win solutions, both for the women entrepreneurs and for the banks or the financial institutions that are accompanying them. Then the third pillar is the policy pillar, actually. And when it comes to access to finance, the tendency has been to look at financial institutions because they're the ones who have the money and who are supposed to lend it or not lend it. However, we forget that banks or financial institutions are regulated by government entities who tell them what to do and what not to do. And one of the things that they have told them to do is that when you lend, you need to take collateral. And the collateral that you need to take is called a land title or a property title. By the mere fact that we have done that, we have unconsciously actually put women aside. Because if there's one thing that women don't have, it's a land title or a property title. not knowing or not, if you will, being open enough to also look at other types of collateral that are movable collaterals that can also be of equal value and sometimes even of higher value, if you will, to secure the loans, right? Looking at different types of risk mitigants or risk analysis in order to enable women to access, right? So today you can lend based on cash flow, you can lend based on asset ventures, all these types of things that would make it a lot easier for women to access. Right? So ensuring that we're also talking to governments to ensure that the reforms are in place so that the financial institutions can actually go there, can take the risk. We talk about the interest rate and how high it is and so on. The interest rate very often is at the base, also decided at regulatory level. So if at the base it's already high, we can definitely expect that for SMEs overall, and definitely for women entrepreneurs who are much smaller, it will also be high, right? So ensuring that we're addressing all these issues is what AFAWA is trying to do. Our goal is to reach 5 billion of financing unlocked for women entrepreneurs in the next 5 years. So let me stop here and send it back to you, Dr. KUPE.
Wow, thank you so much, Madame Miriam. Amazing, wonderful, comprehensive presentation there. The 3 pillars, 1 around making money available, 2 around access to skills, 3 around policy pillars. And just from my perspective, I was very, very happy and interested also to take note of the fact that women do repay their loans in spite of the fact that, you know, they're considered a higher risk. But statistically, and I've heard this before, is that women repay loans better than everybody. So I'm glad you really emphasize that aspect. The other aspect around, which I found very important for us to take note, is upskilling financial institutions to understand women better, because in many instances, we upskill the women, but it's important to equally upskill the financial institutions to understand their audience better and their clients and their target people. And lastly, as a lawyer myself, I was also interested in the regulatory environment, your 3rd pillar on policy. Very, very important. And originally myself, I come from Botswana. I know we had to work on legislation pertaining to marital laws, marriage laws, because some of those marriage laws reduced women's capacity to own property, therefore to access the collateral that's needed. So it's extremely important to deal with that regulatory environment, not only from an international perspective, as my brother JONI has talked about the International Labor Conventions, but also from a national legislative perspective. So thank you so much for that very comprehensive conversation. We're going to continue our discussion, and now we're going to move to part 3 of our discussion, ladies, and this is going to be talking about portrait of women entrepreneurship. This is the section where we're going to actually be almost doing like case studies and having women talk more about their experience and their experiences as women entrepreneurs. We are still hoping to have Madame Ibada. She will be coming on later, I think. So I'm going to go straight to our next speaker, Madame KHADIJA IDRISSI JANATI. And the question I'm going to put to you for our 3rd segment is, being a woman entrepreneur today is a bit easier. I'm not sure if I would say much easier, but a bit easier, I think, particularly even in Africa. And I think that we've seen, my brother JONI said something to the effect that there's been progress, but not to the degree that we would like to see. But we have seen more legitimacy. We've seen a little bit more recognition for women entrepreneurs, especially in Africa. How can we explain this progress and this leadership kind of leap that is happening today in Africa? The entrepreneurs in Africa are now beginning to create a more positive influence and encouraging and attracting more business women. So can you please just talk to us around that and advancing women entrepreneurship on the continent and in the continent of Africa? Madam Khadija, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much for that specific question, because yes, actually I feel, and I think that there are numbers and figures that show that I mean, you just need to know that within the African continent, 58% of the self-employed people or the entrepreneur population are women. This makes Africa the world leader as a region in terms of women entrepreneurship. These women do create more than $300 billion. This is the total value created by female entrepreneurship in Africa. This is about maybe 12 to 13% of Africa's GDP. Which means that when you look at the figures, there are things that are being done by women entrepreneurs in the continent. But on the other hand, when you go and dig deeper into the situation, you will find that many of these women did not choose to be entrepreneurs. They had to become entrepreneurs because they had no choice, either because of the lack of education, or because they are assuming too many roles in their lives that the only professional role they could assume is something they do create by themselves, they do manage their own way, and sometimes they can do from their home. So this is not what we call chosen entrepreneurship. This is a kind of last chance entrepreneurship. And this is what makes the majority of these enterprises not scalable, stay at a very, very small scale, be it from finances perspectives, or from employees perspectives, or even from vision perspectives. So this is, in my opinion, this is a strength. This is an opportunity, but it's for the time being a huge weakness for women entrepreneurship and for the economy of the whole continent. I believe that Africa is a great place to become entrepreneur for both men and women. The continent is today attracting the interests of the world. All the media worldwide are being interested in the continent for every reason, but the fact is that there is a visibility. When you are an African entrepreneur, you are entitled to some kind of visibility. When you are a woman, you can attract an even more visibility. The world is seeing Africa as a good place to invest, be it good or bad investments, but still there is an opportunity here. So this is why I think that there are some conditions that make the continent a very good place to become entrepreneur. The condition, and this is the big condition that the previous speakers were talking about, is how do Africans can seize this opportunity and put in place all that is needed to be done in order to create a real positive impact on these entrepreneurs, women and men within the continent. I think that the pandemic has shown us two things. One, the real importance of women, but also the fragility of their situation. Women in the continent, in Morocco, this is an example, but within the whole continent, women have been very much impacted by the pandemic even more than men, because they do work in sectors that were in the front line of the pandemic. The majority of health workers, education workers, but also informal sector are women. They in majority do not have medical access to medical services, and besides their work outside the house, all that is linked to homeschooling for the kids, taking care of the houses where you could not even get help because of the curfews and the difficulties of moving, have created much more impact on women than on men, on their health, but also on their ability to continue to produce and to work and to develop their professional paths. So maybe what I have done here is showcase my situation as an African women entrepreneur, and what keeps me as an African women entrepreneur hoping for a better future is that I can see opportunities everywhere in Africa. I can see people of Africa doing making huge efforts, but what is really missing here for me is a serious and authentic political willingness to make women entrepreneurship become a real priority of all the governments. This is what is missing. When you decide to make a subject a real priority, you put all that is needed as means, be it financial means, human resources, in order to play the role that needs to be played to make it a real priority. If we see the reports that are being made either by World Bank, international organizations, the World Economic Forum, African countries, the majority of African countries are not being in the in the good positions, and that showcases how much we still need our politicians to be really involved in this and make the necessary efforts for that.
Wow, thank you so much, Madame Khadija. And you know what I heard you also saying is that this is an opportunity also for us in Africa to change the narrative and to redefine Africa. For so long, I think the narrative of Africa has been told in the story by other people. And Africa has been painted as an impoverished continent, you know, but we know obviously that the story is quite different. A country that is rich with resources, you know, in 2 nations alone, 89% of the world's total reserves of platinum are in only 2 nations in Africa, in Zimbabwe and in South Africa. And we can go on and on with the richness of the resources that are in Africa. And really, it's time to change the narrative. It's time to redefine Africa. It's time for women to be a part of that changing narrative. And as if you've rightly said, political will has to be shown. There's been an environment where international organizations such as the ILO have created part of the framework, and we're thankful for organizations like AFAWA also that are bringing another piece of the puzzle to it in terms of accessibility to finance. But now it's time for governments to actually, for implementation, to provide that political will and make sure that women have that. So thank you so much, Madame Khadija, and also for sharing a bit of your story as a woman entrepreneur in the continent and coming from Morocco. So I want to thank you for that. And to conclude part 3 of this section, of this portion, I'm going to invite Madame CHIOMA Ugo to also just give us for the next few minutes her presentation. And the question I'm going to put to you, Madame CHIOMA, is this, and say that as an operator in the finance and banking services, how women entrepreneurs actually approach the business market is very key. What is their strength in this economic context to find the correct balance? How do they find the right balance between financial needs, banking mechanism, and risk management? Madame CHIOMA, can you talk to us about that with your background in finance and banking, to say, how does one find that right balance between financial needs, banking mechanism, and risk management. The floor is yours, Madam CHIOMA.
Oh, okay, I'm already unmuted. Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Pearl. I guess the question is straightforward. Women should approach the market with confidence because women are the backbone. We are the backbone of our communities and many African economies. At the peak of this pandemic, we've seen that many women entrepreneurs were providing essential services to their local communities. And in Nigeria and across Africa, women have already proven that they know how to approach the business market. So finding the right sort of balance between financial needs, banking mechanisms, and risk management is challenging. But it's all about women entrepreneurs and business owners understanding their own business and its key drivers. And with this information, they can evaluate their financial challenges against financial resources available to them, which are vast, and then use this to assess the risk and then make the best possible decision for their own business.
Wonderful.
Over to you, Dr. Pearl.
Okay, thank you very much. And I think we were enthralled, and we were actually wanting you to give some more information, but we're going to continue. Yeah, do you want to go ahead?
Okay, some more information. Okay,
maybe
so
just add a little bit more, and then we're going to go to our next section. I think we were still a bit hungry to hear more from you.
All right, not a problem. Okay, so as I said before, I'm head of growth at Prosper. Prosper is a platform that provides financial management services, and it's a banking platform also, which allows entrepreneurs to access banking very quickly, banking services, and also essentially manage their businesses. Now, this is, I guess, our service is not unique in the sense that there's so many different financial technology. It's a fintech company. There are a lot of fintech companies popping up across Nigeria and all over Africa, which means that it's easier for female entrepreneurs to access so many different financial services, not only funding, but also support in terms of helping them grow their business and the day-to-day sort of running of their business. So I guess in conclusion, what I would say is being able to access a lot of these services, looking at what they have to offer, and knowing your business and how your business can sort of fit into the new sort of innovations that are popping up across Africa and all over the world, and then making the right sort of decision for women entrepreneurs, making the right decisions for their own businesses, and assessing the risks that are involved with each different product or each different platform, and using this to sort of drive their own business forward.
Thank you so much, Madam CHIOMA, and all the aspects you've spoken about in terms of accessing the services, knowing one's business, how it can fit. And I think it's particularly relevant in this post-COVID environment that one really reviews one's business to, you know, see how it fits, not only generally, but how it fits within a post-COVID environment, and that will help one make the right business decisions for this particular season that we're in, and accessing the risks still within the post-COVID environment. So thank you very much for that. And I think that was a very exciting part 3 of our conversation, which is now going to take us to part 4 of our conversation. And here we're going to be dealing specifically with the aspect of fostering women's entrepreneurship. In this segment, I'm going to be giving each of the speakers about 3 or 4 minutes just to address a specific question, which is going to be addressed to each and every one of you. And we'll be giving you just about 3 to 4 minutes each to talk. And I'm going to start with my brother, JONI. We haven't heard from you in a while. And as our only male speaker, we want to hear that voice. So we're going to kickstart again with you. And this is just in terms of that, let me just kickstart. First of all, let me kickstart with a statement just to say that the World Bank considers women entrepreneurship as a key priority in the development program for the African continent. how can we empower this dynamic by creating adapted resources and regulation to foster women entrepreneurs' involvement and impact? So this is, you know, something that I would like you to sort of all think about in terms of your response. And directly, what I would like to pose directly to my brother JONI is to say this. ILO, we know, is cooperating with governments, and it's a tripartite organization cooperating with not only governments, but with workers and with employers. And can you share with us, JONI, how women's entrepreneurship programs are supported by those stakeholders? I know you have alluded to it in your conversation, but can you share a little bit more? And what is the main strategic direction that ILO is taking in this regard? Over to you, JONI.
Thank you very much for this question. So, of the three partners we work with, employers, governments, and workers, when we talk about women entrepreneurship, the principal host of our support is the associations. And these are largely, in the first place, big business associations. And the main effort we're making is to ensure that these business associations are responsive to the SMME sector, and particularly to women business associations. We provide support to business associations in terms of organizing themselves, providing services to their members, but most importantly, that they can lobby for particular areas where they particularly feel constrained in terms of the enabling environment. I think the previous panelist was talking about the importance of an enabling environment for business in general, but more importantly for women entrepreneurs. So we partner with business associations and work on particular areas. Let me give a practical example. In Eswatini, we worked with business Eswatini to lobby government to liberalize the mobile market, the mobile communications market. When we started, there was only one mobile operator, and therefore the premiums were very high. There was not sufficient competition in that market. The majority of the women entrepreneurs who were largely in the informal and SME sector, who rely a lot on using their phone as a tool for business, paid huge premiums in terms of data costs. But after this lobby, the market opened up, and I think there are now 3 or 4 actors in Eswatini, and that has had the effect of reducing the cost of accessing mobile services. And therefore, most informal economy and SME operators who, as KHADIJA said, are largely women, are able to function much more effectively. We work, more importantly, also with the government, normally with ministries of SMEs. For example, here in South Africa, in the context of COVID, which has been highlighted as having a big impact, particularly on SMEs and the informal economy, we have worked with them to create a database of SME operators by municipality, because there have been these resources that have been availed, but how to ensure that those COVID relief funds access the SMEs who are supposed to get them, where the majority of them are women, has been a difficulty. So we have developed an online-based database system, which the government is now adopted, adjusted, and is now using throughout all the municipalities to document, to register all the SME operators, so that they can then be able to enter into dialogue with the government with a view to assisting them to access these COVID relief funds. So we do undertake quite a lot of activities, both on the registration and recognition side for the SME operators, but also on the services side, particularly on policy advocacy with the business associations. Thanks. Over to you.
Thank you so much, JONI, for also just articulating how you not only work with business associations, but you're also working with government to create that enabling environment. And thank you for the practical examples that you've given, the one in Eswatini, which not only resulted in a lowering of the mobile networks costing, but also advantaging some of the women entrepreneurs there. So that was very, very helpful. And of course, the ability to access the COVID relief funds that you've spoken about. So thank you for that. And the next question I would like to address now to Madame Miriam. It's been a while since we've heard from you, and we want to hear more about AFAWA and the role that it's playing. And what I would like to address to you is to say that AFAWA proposes financial and training solutions so that it can bring efficient or the most efficient assistance to women entrepreneurs. In terms of capacity building, what would you say are the main areas of expertise that you offer? I'm sure that you've shared some of your experience in terms of financial management, budget management, even I think pertaining to good governance. You've talked to us about the 3 pillars that you are working through. We'd also like to hear from you any other key successful competencies that you feel business women would need to have and to combine.
Yes, so for us, the way we're approaching capacity building is really from a human-centered perspective. So we really want to understand how is it, well, first of all, what are the types of businesses? What are the segments or the sectors that we're talking about? And how do we ensure that we're filling the skill gaps that women have in order for their businesses to be more successful overall? But most importantly, for those businesses to be able to create jobs, because at the end of the day, that's the whole point of entrepreneurship, especially for our continents. The level of unemployment is so high. And so if we're going to use entrepreneurs to fill in that gap, then they have to have the capacity to employ people. And so as part of the technical assistance that we're providing, it will include that, right? It includes mentoring. It includes even in terms of taking your business from, you know, point A to point B in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years, because that is so critical when you're also upselling or presenting your business to the financial institutions. So it includes the whole gamut, but it just really zero in on understanding the issues that the human that is at the center, so the woman, is facing, and how do we develop business solutions around that, upskill her in order for her to present a more bankable businesses, give her people that she can lean on as role models so that she can also aspire to kind of run these larger businesses, and give her the steps, the different steps that she needs to have in place. The one difference also is that we're not upskilling women on the side. We're upskilling women in the financial institutions, because we want the financial institutions to also become the partners that are accompanying their clients to becoming the employers of tomorrow, right? So to train the women on the side and then pushing them to go to the financial institutions has not yielded the kind of results that we want. So what we want to see today is women entrepreneurs taking the step to build the relationship with their bankers by going to the bank, opening that bank account. That is the passport, if you will, to them now accessing a plethora of training opportunities.
Oh, that's wow. That's amazing. And I love that, the aspect of not upskilling women on the side. It's not a side issue, but it's upskilling them within the actual financial institution. I think it's practical, and I think it's the way that to go. Thank you for that, Madame Miriam. And we're going to move now to Madame Khadija. We want to hear from you again. And what I'm going to pose to you and put to you directly is just to say that being a successful entrepreneur yourself, you know that it requires the right mindset and quite a bit of determination, and especially in terms of you know, overcoming some social difficulties, some of which have to do, we know, with some stereotypes that all of us face. And you've talked about areas around inspiration. And I know that you are definitely a role model to many, not only in Morocco, but also within the continent. I'd like to ask you right now, what is the main support? What would you say is the main support and resources that are needed or required for women to be active in entrepreneurship in Africa today?
Well, that's not an easy question.
No, it's not.
Because, you know, there are so many things that do not really help women pursue their dreams. Now, apart from all the practical, let's say, challenges, everyday challenges linked to the family, linked to how the society would view and perceive you, especially if you decide to give up a salary to go as an entrepreneur. I mean, you start looking like an alien. I mean, for me, there is one single thing. If we are able to manage this for every little girl and young women and women, I think that we can advance a lot in terms of women empowerment. That's convincing, telling, starting by telling, in order to convince women that they can dream, they have the right to dream, to choose, and to decide for themselves. Because for me, what the real limit for women is the limitations that the society had put in their minds. It's really about our minds. If you, I mean, wherever I have the opportunity to speak at a conference or in a media or talk to young women, I would just close everything I would say by saying that be sure that you have the right to dream and you have the right to choose for yourself, and nobody is supposed to choose for you or decide in your place, be it a personal or professional decisions and choices. I am pretty sure that the day where every single young girl and women will be able to believe that she can decide for herself, she can make her own choices, entrepreneurship, professional success will not be an issue in Africa. And even we will, I dream of the day when we will stop talking about women empowerment, because all women will have been enough empowered. And I believe we have done, women are now much more empowered than they used to be. But the real power is when you know that you can decide for yourself and you are able to pursue your dream. And at that moment, we will really see another face of Africa, the face that we are working for all together.
Thank you so much, Madame Khadija. You know, I always say, because this issue of women empowerment statement has also been an issue for me, and I say that women are powerful. So I'm not sure how much empowerment we need. They are powerful. What they need is opportunities, because they're already powerful. And so they don't need power, they need opportunities, yes.
And I think that they need visibility. You were talking about the narrative. I think that we are creating that good narrative. Now what we need is to take, to be visible and to tell this narrative that we have been creating and building during at least the past 20 years within our continent. So every single woman has to seize every single opportunity she would have to be visible, to speak up her voice and to tell her story. The stories of all African women have been contributing to the creation of this new narrative about Africa. And if every woman tells a bit part of her story, we will definitely succeed in redefining the narrative of the continent.
Absolutely. And as you've rightly said, the younger we can get that message to young people out there to begin to negate some of those societal stereotypes. You remind me of when I was an executive, corporate executive with Transnet, And one of our social CSI, corporate social investment projects, was to go out there for career programs and tell young people, especially young ladies in the schools, in primary schools, to tell them the opportunities and the capacity that they had, that, you know, they can be nurses and teachers, but they can also be astronauts and engineers. So it's of critical, and scientists, the STEM, you know, the STEM areas. So it's very important. And again, it's about changing the narrative and changing it at a very early age. So thank you again so much for that. And for our last speaker in the segment, and then after this, we're going to go into Q&A, and I see we're already getting some questions in the chat group. But for our last speaker in this part 4, I'm going to hand it over to Madame CHIOMA. And the question to you, Madame CHIOMA, is around mobilization of resources. So by mobilizing resources from education to investment and social assets, how do you, Madame CHIOMA, see cooperation between the public sector, the private sector, investment sector, and women entrepreneurs? How do you see that creating more opportunities on the African continent?
Okay, so I see it creating a lot of opportunities on the African continent. I think it is important that the private, public and investment sectors work together with female entrepreneurs, so alongside female entrepreneurs, as key decision makers also to establish partnerships. So for example, in Nigeria, the central bank has earmarked 60% of the MSME development fund for women. So 60% of that fund will be going to women, and there will definitely be a collaboration between the private sector on how female entrepreneurs can access these funds and how they can use these funds to grow their businesses. And from my own first-hand experience, I know that there are a lot of women who struggle to scale their businesses past the early stage. So I guess in Africa, we always talk about, you know, small SMEs, micro businesses, but a lot of women who run small and micro businesses want to scale, but they struggle to do so. So I think the private, public and investment sector can collaborate with these women in 3 key ways. One is funding, another is access to talent, and another is the use of technology. Because a lot of women need more than just funding, they need access to talent, and they also need practical support to help train them and to grow their businesses.
Wow, thank you so much for that. 3 areas that you touched on quickly in terms of funding, access to talent, and of course the use of technology. And technopreneurship is another key buzzword that we're beginning to hear a lot of. You know, we've been talking about entrepreneurship, and now the buzzword is technopreneurship. So it's not just about entrepreneurship, but technopreneurship, technology, and the use of technology in entrepreneurship.
It certainly is,
yes.
Because I guess it gives women access to more markets,
yes.
more customers, even within their own markets. It helps business processes. And when you're using technology, for example, you can do a lot of things faster than you would if you were doing them manually. So definitely training on how to use a lot of these things to run a business is definitely important. And I think that these 3 sectors can collaborate not only to fund training and programs, but also to implement them across various different countries in Africa on the continent.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. And that concludes part 4 of 4 segment of our conversation. We're going to move on to part 5, which is the question and answer. And if you are still on this program, please, I want to encourage you, don't leave yet. We are almost through. We're going to have the next 10 to 15 minutes question and answer, and these questions are going to be directed at whoever would like to answer them on our panelists, our speaker panelists. But after the question and answer, we're going to be wrapping up and concluding. So let me encourage you not to leave this very exciting conversation. Stay on board, because we're going to be through probably in the next 15, 20 minutes or so. First question I'm going to take is from Madame Teboho Petlele. She definitely sounds like she's from the Sadak region. Teboho is a Setswana name. So she's a new leader for tomorrow, and she has put a question in our chat. And this is open for anybody on the panel to please answer. The question is, as a social entrepreneur, and she's talking about being a social entrepreneur by default. I remember, I think it was Madame KHADIJA who was saying that some of the people, some of us as women entrepreneurs have gotten into entrepreneurship, not so much as a matter of choice, but in terms of only chance or last option. So she says, as a social entrepreneur by default, are there any skills development programs that are available for social entrepreneurs or organizations to mentor and groom us so we can be able to fit in the system in order to be able to identify how we can access funding and skills development training? That's from Teboho Petlele. And I'm sure that probably my brother JONI would be able to answer some aspect. In fact, there are quite a number of our panelists here. I know even Madame Miriam would be able to speak to that around AFAWA, but let me leave that open to any of the panelists who would like to answer that question around skills development programs that are available.
Yes, if I may. I think it depends where Teboho is, which country she is. We have a number of programs being run on social entrepreneurship. Here in South Africa, we have a big program looking at the law on social entrepreneurship and facilitating access of social entrepreneurs to contracts, particularly with government, but also with the private sector. But related to that access to market is a robust skills development program. So it just depends where she is. We could talk offline and see how we can help her. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, my brother JONI. Do we have any other contributors? Madame Miriam, would you like to contribute to that, or any one of our speakers?
I mean, I would fully agree with JONI, but I would say today also digitally, there are a number of courses for startup social entrepreneurs that can also be accessed very easily as well. But I guess one would also have to decide, because social entrepreneurship is big, right? So what is the if you will, the area of focus, and then based on that, pick the right one for the entrepreneur.
Thank you so much for that. I don't know, Madame CHIOMA, if you would like to add to that, or any one of our other speakers. If not, we're going to move on to the next question. Madame CHIOMA, do you want to respond to that, or would you like us to move on?
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear you. I had some technical difficulties. So I actually popped out for a quick second.
Oh, no, that's fine.
Okay, yes, sorry, could you repeat the question?
It was just around access to skills development programs. It's a question we've had from the floor from Teboho, and she wanted to know around availability for skills development programs. We've had a response from JONI, ILO, and Madame Miriam as well from AFAWA. And it's open. You don't have to answer, but we just thought we'd open it to you as well if you wanted to talk to some skills development programs that will be available to social for entrepreneurs.
Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
Sorry, I missed half of what you said.
Okay, is it a network issue?
I think it's a network issue. So I've turned off my camera. Hopefully
Okay.
But you can move on. You can move on, and then I'll jump in.
All right.
The next
Okay,
question.
that's fine. Let's move on to the next question. And our next question is from, again, it's open to any of the speakers. Please feel free to answer this. And the question is coming from Raymond Mugisha. And he says, how should we enlist men? I think a very important question. How should we enlist men in cultural reorientation to afford their daughters the same opportunities as their sons? And how do we motivate parents? We just spoke about this with Madame Khadija, and she talked about preparing girls at a young age. And he's asking the question, how do we motivate parents to start preparing their daughters for entrepreneurial roles and challenges? For instance, taking over the management of family business. And he says this is important in a way that children who have been trained and tuned in from the start to take business responsibilities have higher chances of starting their own businesses. And many traditional families choose boys for such challenges. So very important question right there. I think two questions that are coming out of this. How do we enlist men in cultural reorientation to make sure that they afford the daughters the same opportunities as their sons? And I want to say this, it's not just maybe culturally reorienting men, even women to a certain degree. A lot of women who were themselves oriented, that when you have a boy child and a girl child who come from school, it's women who will tell their daughters to go and wash the dishes and take care of the home, and boys can go outside and play soccer or something. So I don't think it's just about reorienting men. It's about reorienting us as a whole, reorienting the whole family, and changing the mindset together. So how do we ensure this cultural reorientation by all, not just men, but by all? And secondly, a follow-up question around preparing our daughters for entrepreneurial roles. And he's given an example by including them practically in the business. So floor is open, ladies and gents.
So I would like to take this question, and that allows me to get back to something that you mentioned earlier, but we did not have the opportunity to develop, which is role modeling. I think that role models here can play a huge role in many ways. I mean, especially for families, when you promote role models of successful women in business, first you show that it's possible. If they made it, then it's possible. So the second one is that you show that it's not about exceptions. You are not anymore talking about exceptions. Successful women entrepreneurs in Africa are, there is a big number, a large number of them, and they are not exceptions anymore. And every little girl can become that successful woman entrepreneur that she dreams to be. The third point where women role models are important in changing the paradigms is their diversity. So today there is not only one style of women entrepreneurs, successful women entrepreneurs, but there are many styles which can, coming from different backgrounds, social backgrounds, educational backgrounds, ethnic backgrounds. So by showcasing as many as we can tell as many women and as many girls and as many men that, well, becoming a successful woman entrepreneur does not mean changing or leaving our roots, does not mean belonging to another world, does not mean becoming another person. We still can stay the same person we would like to be, linked to our roots, linked to our values, and become successful women entrepreneurs. I mean, for me, this is why role modeling is really an effective, and showcasing as many role models that as possible can really affect and help changing that perspective from a cultural point of view. The second point besides this is showing the benefits. I think that we need to show the benefits of letting young girls pursue their dreams, helping young girls and boys, by the way, because in general, encouraging entrepreneurship is something that needs to target boys and girls, because the economy, society would gain by having more entrepreneurs employing themselves and creating jobs for everyone. So showcasing the benefits of helping, supporting, encouraging women become entrepreneurs from an economic point of view, but also from a social point of view. You will have women who will be more independent, happier, the impact on the family and then on the society. So I think these are two key factors or ways that we can use in order to help change the culture and change the perception and the behaviors.
Thank you so much, Madame Khadija. Do we have any other responses? Madame Miriam, do you want to talk to the aspect around? Okay, go ahead.
I just wanted to add to what Khadija just said. I think making entrepreneurship an option, it's a formal option, right? Yes. I think growing up as children, when we ask you, what do you want to be? None of them will ever come up with, I want to be an entrepreneur, because that's not the option that's being given to them. You can be a police officer, a banker, a doctor, a lawyer. You can also be an entrepreneur, right? And with that, making it something that's also included in our school curriculums from the start, right? What does it mean to deal actually with money? What does it mean to build something from scratch and to take it to the greatest heights possible, both for young girls and for young boys as well? Because I think, especially in our context, entrepreneurship is seen as there was nothing else that you could find to do, so you decided to become an entrepreneur. And you kind of just happened to be lucky and you made it this big. And no, the same way you have to work at being an engineer is the same way you have to work at being an entrepreneur. The same way you have to work at being a lawyer is the same way you have to work as being an entrepreneur. And so if we started from the ground up at the very beginning, I think we will see a change also in the way we think, in the way our cultures are shaped, and in the way even this sector ends up growing and being more robust also.
Absolutely. Wonderful. Thank you. Do we have any more contributions that we want to make, or can we move on to our next and probably our final question? Do we have any other contributions around cultural reorientation and around some practical steps of including the girl child in the entrepreneurship area? If not, then I'm going to move to our last question here on the chat group, which is from Ayodele Wack-Williams. And this is a question to all the panelists. And in fact, I'm going to encourage us maybe just to respond in writing to this one. The question is, do you have focal points or focal offices in Sierra Leone in West Africa? Ayodele Wack-Williams would want to know if you have offices within the Sierra Leone. And I think rather than do a round robin of responses, if you do have an office, you're one of the speakers, you have an office in Sierra Leone, I think that I'm just going to encourage you maybe to just put the office details within the chat, if that's okay. And we have one last minute question that just came in. I'm going to pose this question, and then we're going to move into our last segment, the sixth segment, which is just going to be around wrapping up. And the last question from Nigeria is asking, it says, a lot of female entrepreneurs, and this is from Serrano Elizabeth from Nigeria. It says, a lot of female entrepreneurs are not aware of funding opportunities available. She talks about carrying out some projects within the urban slums, and she is saying It's not enough that the opportunities are there, but it's even more important that the government and stakeholders be generous with disseminating information. And so she wants to know, how can women like her, who are social development practitioners, be helped to know about these opportunities, and so that they can in turn also help other women to know about these opportunities. So that's a question that I think probably everyone on this panel can answer, and I will leave it open to whoever wants to answer this question. Question is around funding opportunities available, and how can it's information dissemination, how can people know more about the funding opportunities, and she would like to know more so that she in turn can also advise other women, especially those in the urban slums.
Well, I would like to take maybe this question, saying that this is why we're talking a few minutes ago about the real will of government, the political will to position the issue as a serious, as a priority for every government. The reality is today, these opportunities are only available most of the time within the platforms of the international organizations, and each organization will showcase the different program that it is offering, but nothing comes from Africans to Africans. And I think that we will be able to move really forward when the Africans will take care about themselves and will work in order to make things, to advance the situation by themselves, and not only wait for the international organizations to do so. These latter do have a tremendous role to play, and they are definitely playing a very interesting role in fostering this. But still, this is the role of the government. We have been talking within the framework of the IFAN Forum with different political leaders about the necessity of having national instances in every single country working on women conditions, and these instances have to have a platform where every opportunity is listed. For the time being, the only thing that I could maybe suggest is to go look at the platform of the international, maybe the ADB also do offer good opportunities that are that you can find on the platform. Some of the branches of the African Union Commission have also interesting opportunities that they do offer on their websites. But other than this, I'm not aware of any comprehensive platform that showcases everything or every possibility, every opportunity that a woman entrepreneur can have access to. Unfortunately.
So I think from the ADB part, so there are a couple of things. The first thing that we have to understand is that organizations such as ours work through financial institutions, as I said it earlier. So our direct, if you will, beneficiaries are the commercial banks, the microfinance institutions, etc. What we're not seeing, and very often we hear, we don't have the information, but in a way, and it might be seen as a slightly controversial answer, but I will say it anyway, you have to go to the source to get the information. And very often, women entrepreneurs have a tendency to run from the banks because of what they have heard, because of the perception. They're not going to give it to you. It's too complicated. They don't understand you. Bankers are discriminating against women. Might be true, might not be, but at the end of the day, when those programs are there, they are there in the institutions, and we're expecting women entrepreneurs to come. However, having said that, because we've heard so many times that the information was not there, the bank created the 50 Million Women Speak platform. That 50 Million Women Speak platform is, basically a digital platform where the information is provided on financial institutions, on registration policies, on whatever other policies that affect and impact women entrepreneurs. However, again, the registration level of women entrepreneurs very low, right?
Yeah.
So I'm saying that to say that it's a marriage, basically, right? So one side on its own cannot work. It's important that women themselves also, if you will, get a bit more and more engaged and go and push for the information as well.
Okay, and I'd like to add to something that KHADIJA said earlier on, which was that there isn't one platform. I find this the same. Also, there isn't one platform for female entrepreneurs to go on and look for information as it pertains to funding. A lot of the time, you need to search far and wide. So I'll say my advice, practical advice, for the lady who asked this question, is to join communities. You said you're a social enterprise, and a lot of the time with social enterprises, I know they're accessing funds and finances from, I'll say, traditional sort of loans, and banks might be a bit more difficult because you might not be seen as profitable, but there are a lot of organizations that disseminate funds to social enterprises. So if you can join some organizations on ground in Nigeria, you'll be able to access some of this information. At Prosper, we regularly sort of send updates and advice in terms of how both for-profit.
Oh dear. It looks like we may have lost Madame CHIOMA. I think she's been having network issues. So we're just going to move ahead. We're going to move ahead, and we're going to do a round robin. So we hope that she'll come back, and when she comes back, we'll give her an opportunity to conclude everything that she wanted to say. So just in terms of moving into our final segment, I think we've had very fruitful deliberations, very fruitful discussion, and it is my hope that all the participants here have gotten something out of it. And I certainly hope that for the Made in Africa team, Praxis team, this will not be our last discussion on such an important, critically important topic. But on this last segment, for the next couple of minutes, I'm just going to do a round robin and ask each of the speakers as we conclude our plug-in session to ask them to just mention 3 main priorities or opportunities that you think would empower women entrepreneurs in the African continent. So we're just going to go round, and I'm going to go back again to my brother JONI. Can you just please mention maybe 3 top opportunities or priorities that you think would empower women entrepreneurs on the African continent? I know you may already have alluded to some of them, but just in a nutshell, just 1, 2, 3, bam, bam, bam. Please go ahead, my brother.
Thank you. I think the first has to do with enabling environment for business, ensuring that the policies are right, ensuring that the policies are enabling, particularly for women entrepreneurs. But at a practical level is, I think, access to markets and access to finance. And thirdly is, I think, the importance of not only supporting the growth entrepreneurs at the higher end of the pyramid run by women, but the vast majority of women who find themselves in business, not out of choice, but of necessity, and making sure that we facilitate their formalization from informal businesses into the formal economy. Thanks. Let me leave there.
Thank you so much. Thank you, my brother. And I'm going to move on next to Madame Marieme, looking also the same from you. Top 3 priorities or opportunities that would help to empower or help women entrepreneurs in Africa.
So I fully agree with our brother on the panel and all that he said. So to add to it, I would say more role models. We need to see more women entrepreneurs come out and be more visible and to tell the story as it is. That's number 1. Number 2, I think I would say the opportunities are there. It's important that women entrepreneurs be willing to take the risk. And number 3 is ensuring that we're reinforcing our support to them throughout the 3 areas that JONI already spoke about.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And we're going to move on to Madame Khadija, your top 3 priorities or opportunities for women in entrepreneurship in Africa, please.
So for me, clearly, facilitating access to markets is essential. And that doesn't only happen through the facilitating networking, but also through showcasing that women are successful. Women can deliver. Whenever we showcase to a type of client that women are able to deliver, do have the expertise and the know-how, we will create more trust, and then we'll provide as consequently access to markets. Access to finance is essential, and this applies both for very small projects and for large projects. The third point for me is much more about character to develop within women. This is about audacity, courage, give them, equip them with the courage and the audacity it takes to become entrepreneur, which means accepting to be seen differently, accepting the probability of failure, and accepting to challenge everything and everyone to be yourself and achieve what you want to achieve.
Thank you so much for that. And last but certainly not least, Madam CHIOMA from Nigeria, please give us your 3 top priorities.
Okay, so my 3 top priorities would be, the first would be the digital economy. And I think we need to prioritize internet access, affordable broadband and high-speed internet. The second would be education, as well as educating female entrepreneurs on how they can participate in the digital economy. I think we need to be able to train them with the skills in order to do so. And the third is funding. We need more funding for female-owned businesses and startups. As we all know, there is a huge gender funding gap. And I guess from my own perspective, and from Prosper, in this post-COVID world, we've really focused heavily on helping entrepreneurs to really be able to sort of transition their businesses from offline to online, running an online businesses. I will add a 4th point, which is giving more access to data for women. So women who are already running successful businesses, how they can access data to make sure they have access to insights on their business, and also access, as we've seen a lady ask a question, which is access to information on how people can
Oh dear, looks like we may have lost Madame CHIOMA again. But we hope once again that she'll be able to rejoin us. And we've had some amazing presentations, a lot of information that has been disseminated in this discussion. I just want to summarize all the points that have been made by our speakers. From JONI, the top 3 we got was an enabling environment, access to markets and finance, and the importance of providing support for women entrepreneurs through a number of different initiatives. From Madame Khadija, we got facilitating access also to markets, you know, and also the aspect of showcasing the success of women and making sure and showing women who are delivering. And again, also the aspect of access to finance was identified. And for Madame Marieme, she talked about agreeing with all of what was presented, but also saying role models and telling stories, again, telling the stories of success. She talked about opportunities and also taking risk, importance of now going out to take that risk, and also ensuring the reinforcement of the support out there. And of course, from Madame CHIOMA, her emphasis was really on the digital economy aspect and educating still within that digital economy and training them within that digital economy perspective. She also talked about funding and also giving more access to women in terms of data. And also Madame Khadija also did mention the aspect of character development, giving them that strength and boldness to also take risks. So I do want to conclude this session by reading a couple of comments that we've had, because it's very encouraging to me, and I hope to the speakers, and I hope also to the Made in Africa team who has made it possible. I'm reading this from the chats, and there's a comment from Belgium that says, from the Association Femmes en Milieu Rural, and they're sending congratulations to this whole panel, to this conversation. Congratulations for a high quality conference. She says she really likes the aspect mentioned about women's narrative, having that narrative which is being changed and women being a part of that narrative. And she's actually also asking that there be a promotion of real equipping and tutoring through a mentor-mentee program. And so that's a comment from her. Another comment also we're getting from one of our own speakers, from Madame Khadija, who's also thanking everybody on the panel, and thank you to Made in Africa for hosting her, and saying it was a pleasure to share this platform with all the inspiring speakers. And she's had to leave, so she just wanted to say goodbye. But on behalf of Made in Africa, I think I would like to thank every one of the speakers, and I also would like to thank Praxis through Madame Barbara Castaganeta, also, and your team. Thank you for hosting this very important platform, having this very important conversation. Thank you for giving me the privilege of moderating this session and trusting me with that moderation. And we hope that you will continue this good work, and this is not the last time we have such an amazing opportunity to discuss this important conversation. So to all of you, I would like to wish you safety. Keep safe in this COVID environment. Continue to pursue your dreams, and let's all take hands, join hands together to make sure that we see an increase not only in numbers, but in the quality of women entrepreneurs in Africa. In one of my languages, which is Setswana, we would say Kenako. Kenako means it's time. It is the appointed time. I leave you with those words as an African woman. Kenako. In Zulu, we say iskati. Iskati says fikile. The time has come. Kenako. Arieng. Let's go. Thank you so much for everybody's contribution. Enkos.